Platchums!
It's fair to say the PS3 got off to a rocky start, mainly due to a big price tag and lackluster library of games. Sony did eventually get it together, bringing out a cheaper console and focusing on what everyone wanted: motion controls.
Wow!
Sorry, I mean great games. Towards the end, the PS3 had one of the most impressive lineups of console exclusives ever. In fact, the PS3 set the standard that PlayStation was the place to go for amazing console exclusives, something that's arguably never been more true even today. But the PS3 wasn't just a console for the big hitter first-party exclusives. The PS3 also had an impressive library of lesser-known games, hidden gems if you will. In this video, we will look at some games that didn't necessarily break any sales records, but are guaranteed to be a good time if they look anyway interesting to you. As a bonus, all the games except one has trophy support and an achievable platinum. Of course, these games are also available on other platforms, so if you don't have a PS3, you might find them elsewhere. So, without further ado, here are 8 PS3 hidden gems you probably haven't played. Number 1. Game of Thrones. This is the amazingly unknown and surprisingly great Game of Thrones RPG for the PS3. Released in 2012, this BioWare-esque RPG was met with a lukewarm reception and made little impact despite being out during the height of Game of Thrones mania. The game sees you play as 2 different characters: Alistair Sarwyck, a priest of R'hllor, and Mors Westford, a ranger of the Night's Watch. The game looks dated even for 2012, and the combat is nothing to write home about. However, in this game you will find a deep and intriguing story that takes place around the same time as Season 1. I think any Game of Thrones fan will find a lot to love, most specifically in the story of this game. Even though it isn't canon, it ties in with the main story and has, all the typical twists and turns and betrayals that you'd expect from Game of Thrones. You'll also be treated to some minor cameos and downright terrifying knockoffs, but I mean, come on, it can't be any worse than Season 8, right? Number 2. The Saboteur. The Saboteur is a GTA-style open-world game set in Nazi-occupied Paris. One of the few games I can think of where you play as an Irishman. In The Saboteur you play as Sean Devlin, a drunken criminal who would rather risk his life fighting Nazis than stay in Ireland. Sean speeds around Paris, taking out Nazi installation one by one, as you inspire the people of France to resist against their occupiers. The Saboteur has a super unique setting and uses the colour of the city to really illustrate oppression. As you clear sections of the map, the city starts to get its colour back, which is really cool. It works really well. The gameplay is largely stuff you've seen before: shooting, exploding, driving. However, there's a huge charm to the game, and one that I really fondly remember after 13 years. Number 3. Hunted: The Demon's Forge. Hunted: The Demon's Forge is a third-person action RPG following 2 adventurers on their quest to get some magic artifact or something. The game was released in 2011 and is pretty heavy on the action. My favourite aspect of this game is the 2 protagonists. You can switch between them at set points and both offer distinct gameplay experiences, Ilara being more ranged focus and Kadok being the typical Chad. In addition to the fun gameplay, the voice acting and character interactions are the strongest part of this game for me. There's a really cool dynamic between the 2 heroes of the story. Despite seeming like a pretty overused genre, there aren't really many games out there like Hunted: The Demon's Forge, and it's an easy recommend to any fans of action RPGs or just gritty fantasy worlds in general. Number 4. Mini Ninjas. As a lifelong fan of ninjas, Mini Ninjas was a very easy sell for me back in 2009. The game follows the ninja Hero as he attempts to rescue his ninja friends. An ancient samurai warlord has cursed the land, standard stuff. The game is a mixture of action-adventure and 3D platformer, packed with charm and just a lot of fun. While there's no escaping, this game was clearly designed for the younger gamer. There are a surprisingly large amount of gameplay mechanics on offer here, and players of all age will have a blast, especially ninja fans. Mini Ninjas is the kind of game that's rarely made anymore, and another great PS3 hidden gem. Number 5. Enslaved: Odyssey to the West. from the creators of Heavenly Sword and more recently Senua's Sacrifice. Enslaved Odyssey to the West sees you play as Monkey, a slave who's being unwillingly forced to help a woman on her trip home. The game is set in a post-apocalyptic America overrun by robots, something that we've seen time and time again. Enslaved might be the most well-known hidden gem on this list, with Andy Serkis playing Monkey and the story written by Alex Garland. However, anyone who's played it will agree that this was a game that never really got the attention it deserved. Combat and platforming are largely generic here. It's serviceable, but the story and world building of Enslaved is what truly sets it apart and earns it a spot as a clear hidden gem of the PS3 era. Number 6. Folklore. Another game on the list with an Irish connection. Folklore is an ARPG following the story of two strangers whose paths cross when they're drawn to this mysterious Irish village. Our two protagonists, Keats and Ellen, have their own distinct plot lines, and similar to the Persona series, there's events occurring both in the real world and this magical netherworld. You have to play as both characters to move the story along, with a focus on investigation and conversations in the real world, and then this really unique and exciting battle system when you go into the netherworld. It plays a bit like Pokemon or Persona in the fact that you get new abilities every time you defeat a creature. Important to note that Folklore is the only game on this list without a trophy list, but I would say don't let that discourage you. This is a must play for action RPG fans and a really cool PS3 hidden gem. Just bear in mind, it's actually a pretty rare one and quite tough to find. Number 7. Two Worlds 2. Following on from the infamous Two Worlds 2 is an open world RPG that saw massive improvements on pretty much all aspects of the game. I once read a review of Two Worlds 2 which cited it as the best knockoff third-person version of Skyrim out there, and I really can't disagree. Let there be no mistake, Two Worlds 2 can be rough around the edges. However, with a bit of time, you'll see that there's a lot to love here. Thankfully, no previous Two Worlds experience is required, as you largely make the game your own. There's a lot of build flexibility, with magic being probably the most enjoyable way to play. There's a lot of fun to be had experimenting with your spells. Anyone who loves to loot everything will love this game. Just be prepared for a lot of inventory management. I would say go in with your expectations tempered, and you're bound to have fun with this light-hearted, massive open world experience. Number 8. Castlevania Lord of Shadows. Similar to Enslaved, Castlevania Lord of Shadows is another game on this list that many of you might recognize. Produced by Metal Gear Solid man himself, Hideo Kojima, Castlevania is the most well-regarded game on this list critically, but still one of the lesser-known PS3 games. Differing greatly from the Castlevania games of old, Lord of Shadows is, for all intents and purposes, a God of War-style hack-and-slash set within the Castlevania universe, serving as a reboot to the legendary series. Boasting a really impressive voice cast with Robert Carlyle and Patrick Stewart, Castlevania impressed fans and critics with its tight controls, expansive world, and variety of gameplay and puzzles. Lord of Shadows might even be a little too well known to be regarded as a hidden gem, but it's also too good not to include on this list, and anyone who really enjoyed this game is lucky enough that they made a sequel. So there we have it, 8 lesser known PS3 games I would consider hidden gems of the era. Have you played any of them yourselves? Did we leave out your favourite one? If so, I'm sorry. But of course, let us know in the comments, we'd love to hear from you. And as always, thank you for watching.
Platchums!